Hi guys, what's going on, and welcome back to another episode of Total War Arena. So, today we are taking a look at the Tier 7 Barbarian Premium unit, the Druids. So this is another one to come through from the Community Contributor Program, which is great, as always. I do appreciate getting these units, because they're brilliant for me to be able to review them, and hopefully you kind of enjoy the reviews as well. So yeah, the Druids, a bit of a different one from some of the other stuff we've been having. Certainly different in terms of looks. Now, there's two things in kind of the looks. One, I think they look really kind of cool, kind of different to anything else in the game. The fact that they're all, like, entirely white. It's obviously like the old Celtic Druid type people. Very cool. Now the real question, is this massive eyebrows, or are they wearing some sort of circular headband? That's answers on a postcard. Let me know in the comment below. What do you think? Big eyebrows or a circular headband? That's my main question about these guys. So yeah, other than that, what are they like to play? Well, they're kind of tough. I think they are probably about where most premium units should be in terms of balance. They aren't great. I think they're probably slightly worse than the equivalent Andratus swords, but they are a little bit different. They play a little bit differently, and they've got some good things and some bad things. So firstly, what about them is bad? Well, it basically stems down to their mobility is their biggest failing. It's that 3.7 base movement speed is just too slow for a Barbarian infantry, which is why I am running them with Arminius, incidentally, because normally I much prefer running my Barbarian infantry with Vercingetorix, but I feel they have enough mobility to allow me to do that. These guys, with their base 3.7, obviously I'm getting a little boost from running the Sueros. You need that momentum for it to be viable, otherwise you're a light infantry that's as slow as heavy infantry. So yeah, you need that to take full advantage of these guys. Other than that, their just general mobility feels pretty sluggish, quite slow acceleration, quite slow turn speed, etc, etc. They don't feel quite as nice as traditional Barbarian infantry, so that's one big failing. However, on top of that, things do pick up. Things like body armor is nice. That 39 shield armor as well is actually really good. It gives them quite a good base survivability. You know, that means they can take quite a reasonable amount of hits from things like arrows. You know, you're a bit lighter, but that 135 plus 40, you're normally reaching about most archers' weapon damage at this tier, so you shouldn't really be getting exceeded by too much on the frontally, so you should be taking mostly penetration damage. Obviously from the rear you're going to be taking quite a lot. On top of that, they actually also get a reasonable missile block chance, 46. It's not great by any stretch of the imagination, but 46 is perfectly reasonable. You're going to be blocking at least a good proportion of the enemy arrows. Obviously you get nothing like Testudo to boost that, but at least it's not like the Harry Painted Warriors were originally, where there were like 20 or something, so as soon as anyone even looked at you, you got hit by an arrow. So yes, it's not so bad in that sense. Other things like the melee defense is fairly standard, not exactly great, pretty average in this sort of arena. Pretty same things for aggression, really. The only thing I did notice is that they had relatively high charge impact, but given that they don't have a charge, that's an entirely redundant statistic. Yeah, things like melee attacks, pretty reasonable, 118. Not too bad, particularly for a light infantry at tier 7, I was quite pleased with that. For weapon damage, again, 246, pretty solid, pretty on par with everything else on this tier, and they get that quite high Barbarian morale flank damage, which is exactly what you want, and reasonable penetration, etc. So, yeah, in every other statistic, I think they fare okay. Other things they do well, they get their javelins, which is really something that I felt I missed on the Andratus swordsman at tier 7. I've recently got onto the Andratus swords at tier 7, and yeah, the lack of javelin is a real pain. But that is, yeah, a nice thing to have. You get that 3 charges, quite a useful little thing. Their strike / bitter disappointment. Why isn't it slam? I love slam, I hate slash. Give me slam. I was really disappointed about that. But they have a really strange potence of victory, and not an ability, a unit ability that I've seen on anything else at all. And yet it's a bit strange, really. I don't really like it. So what it does, it gives... So if you activate it, if I activate it on this unit here, it has quite a large area effect. So it does encompass all your units and any allies who are nearby, which is one of the benefits. And it gives a 10% melee weapon damage increase, as well as 10 morale. So okay, 10% melee weapon damage, nice. For 30 seconds, it's a good duration in that sense. And it means 2 of your units out of the 3, if you are all engaged, obviously 1 unit gets the movement speed debuff, and 2 units will get the plus 10 morale and plus 10% weapon damage, which is good because these guys already have relatively good weapon damage, so you're going to be adding like another 25, something like that, onto your damage, which is great. Brilliant. However, that 50% movement speed modifier for 30 seconds is pretty brutal. And you've got to be in such a situation where you're happy to be engaged for that long to be wanting that sort of bonus. So, yeah, that's a bit worrying for me. Although, I should say, it does combine quite nicely with Frenzy because you're adding that huge buff to your melee attack with a little bit of weapon damage there. And then you add that 10% weapon damage, means you're really landing those hits well. So it does work quite well in that sense. So it has its benefits. But anyway, I think I've waffled on enough about these guys. Let's hop into some games and see if we can have a few good games with these guys. So we are loading into the Passage of Augustus. Not quite the map I would have picked. Where am I going to go? Probably down this side initially. Let's see where the rest of our team sort of deploys. Not an area that, not a map that really suits barbarians particularly well, because there's not a lot in the way of forest coverage that's in very usable areas. You know, in this map, pretty much all the fighting happens around on these two watchtowers on either side, or there's a rush to the base, all of which is either open ground or road. So there's not much opportunity for me to get in forest and use that light infantry bonus like there is, say, on a map like Marathon or something. So it looks like most of our people are going to go straight in, although some of our Romans seem to be going up the top, which isn't quite ideal. Let's get our momentum going. We'll probably just go straight in with our disguise ability, whatever it's called, infiltration, that's the word, to get our movement speed. Because you do actually, with these things combined, puts these guys to a perfectly respectable movement speed. You know, much more so than if you were just using them with Vercingetorix. 5.37 on road, which is pretty good. It makes them very playable. So I'll just go push up with these companions initially. I think I am top tier probably in this. Okay, looks like we've got some guys here. Oh, they are going straight in hard. Well, let's just go in then. Blobbing obviously is not exactly what I should be doing. Let's go for a strike. War dogs. I'm going to go for it. You can see the range there on our ability, so I've activated one of our abilities. We're going to rout. Oh, no. That is not so good. And I think I might have activated... No, okay, at least it's not the one that's got the movement speed debuff. But yeah, very unfortunate route there. As we've got rear charge. Let's bring this unit back round. Is that friendly cavalry? No, it's just so many enemies here. They're having a really hard time escaping. And that's our commander unit as well, so we're going to lose. Push these guys in if we can. That's some really brutal enemy cavalry gameplay. Let's try and get as much damage on them as we can as they run away. You can see we get some really good hits for damage, which is good. Well, that did not exactly go quite as I had intended. I just hadn't been exactly intended to be swamped by quite so much enemy cavalry all at once. Obviously, one thing these guys really lack is a charge. They have no charge ability at all, not even just to harass or anything. So, in that sort of situation, it's lovely to be able to charge and get really in amongst cavalry is what I like to be able to do. So, yeah, it's kind of lacking a little bit. There's just tons of enemy cavalry, which is kind of making this a bit more difficult. I want to try and get in javelin range of these enemy dogs. Obviously, as well, you know, we have a relatively light infantry. We're kind of vulnerable to cavalry charges in some sense. Or we take at least a reasonable amount of damage from them. So, yeah, it's kind of a weakness. Okay, we're now going to get hit by these war dogs. So let's go straight in with a frenzy. See if we can start to get some hits. You see the range on our potents. You see is that 40 meters area of effect is actually really quite nice. If we can get another throw off. A couple of people at the back, and then they got hit by our friendly javelins. Now this is the problem with this ability. Now one of my units, I can't remember which one I activated on. This one, yeah, it gets that 50% movement speed modifier, which is actually pretty painful. Even with activating against something like momentum, you have lost a lot of speed. So let's start to push back, see if we can think about trying to protect our base. What have we got to come up against? This is when I really wish I had some scorched earth to help me in this sort of situation. Particularly after a poor start like that. Okay, they are pushing into a forest, which seems to be a prime opportunity for us. I would have thought they're going to be thinking about going for vengeance, although they've just been burnt, which is nice for us. Let's go in, particularly while they're on the fire. They're going to have low missile block chance, so let's go in. Yeah, nice amount of damage, 5,000 damage with our javelin throw, which is what we want. Now we've got to be a little bit careful here about deciding what we want to do. Do we want to try and go for a rear flank on them? Because they're about to lose that flanking modifier there. So we could try and go in here like this and see if this rear flank's enough to get them to break. It doesn't look like it is. Let's go for that to give them the modifier. And combined with frenzy, we should be able to get a reasonable amount of damage here. It looks like we're going to cut them down pretty equally. There they go. Okay, well it was worth a little bit of extra damage there. Going to show in some situations you can actually feasibly fight vengeance. And particularly with that sort of combination of the Inspired to Victory ability and it has a different... it actually causes Inspired to Victory. The negative affective potence of victory. I'd never noticed that. Yeah, so with that combined with frenzy, it does actually make a reasonable sort of combination. So, looks like these Romans are in slightly dire straits. Looks like we're going to have some Gungnir charges here. We're going to hit us, but I'm happy with that. Happy to fight into these guys. Let's just cluster up, see what damage we can get. Go for a strike. Try and get these guys who are sort of caught in amongst us. At least kill them off. Okay, so we're blobbing a little bit like a noob here, but there is some logic to it. Because I'm trying to sort of get myself into the sort of position that I want to be able to start to get some rear flanks. Because we've got these Romans quite nicely hemmed in now by the looks of things. Now I'm going to go for a javelin toss on these guys. And then I think I'm just going to go for it, to be honest. Let's try and spread out a little bit more. Let's try and get the rear flanking. There we go, that's what we wanted. Let's go for our frenzy. Get our portents of victory, and then let's try and get some good damage in as they rout. Oh, there's actually not very many of them left. But with frenzy, that massive melee attack that takes us up to what of a melee attack? 235 there. You know, it's pretty easy to cut guys down when you've got that sort of high level of melee attack. It means you can't really miss with your sword strikes. Okay, so we're not doing too badly so far. Yeah, you do get that slowdown. That's a bit of a pain. 30 seconds is just a bit too long. Of a cooldown negative movement speed modifier to make it effective. So it looks like our base is now secure, so we're pushing on down the road to what the enemy base is. Although it looks like we are clearing out these enemies pretty quickly and pretty effectively. Like some enemy archers being caught up in that sort of melee. I don't think there's going to be a lot less for us to do. Let's get our infiltration back reactivated just because it gives us a little bit of extra movement speed. Not a lot, it's like 8%. I mean, better than nothing though. And then I think I'm probably just going to go straight for the cap circle, to be honest. See if we can get a few extra cap points before the end of the game. Because I think that's the way it's going to be going from now on, by the looks of things. So yeah, so let's get our units into the circle. Grab ourselves a few extra points. There we go. There we go, there's a few people there to attack. That's one little thing that if you didn't know, you can do. It's not very clear in the tutorial, is sometimes when you engage a unit of cavalry, half the units, like this sort of situation, end up over here when the bulk of the units engaged over there. If you right-click to attack the main unit, your units are then, charge off trying to catch those guys. Or if there's three of them all in the cluster, you don't know which one's got the units of troops that are caught in your units. If you hold down spacebar, it highlights them and it allows you to sort of quite easily right-click on the units that are in amongst your cluster, and you can then sort of attack them a lot easier. So yeah, it's kind of a semi-useful little ability to find that out. So yeah, that didn't go too badly. Roughly around 2,000 aggression. I think we made some mistakes there at the start, particularly getting engaged with that cavalry. I took a lot more damage than I thought. It was really unfortunate getting that surprise rear flank because that caused us to rout pretty quickly. Even with the +10 morale of the sort of Inspired to Victory ability, didn't really make a lot of difference. Would have been nice to have Iron Defiance there. Iron Discipline. Right, well, while I wait for this commander to hop back, we shall pause and I shall see you all in the second battle. So, we are loading in on Rubicon. Looks like we are top tier, and it doesn't look like there's too much enemy range kicking about, which is certainly a good thing. I'm going to spawn out on the flanks for a start. I'm just going to go straight for the watchtower. I think if you spawn on this side of the map, this is certainly significantly advantageous, so yeah, I'll be going straight here, because we've got the option then, we can go out, see what we see. If it turns out that there's quite a lot coming this way, we'll just run away. Because with Arminius's momentum abilities, and if you include it with infiltration as well, you get quite a good base movement speed. So let's just push straight up to the flag and see what we see. Looks like we have got some tier 7 spearmen on our left flank, as well as a fair bit of cavalry kicking around as well. There's some blood riders coming in fairly hard. Oh, that would be a nice opening move. Oh, please, yes. Well, he's only going to get one and he didn't charge, but still, you can't have everything. So, we've got some Andratus swords. They'd be nice to fight as a comparison. These are their enemy cavalry. Damn. Yeah, I'm beginning to go off this. Those Falcon, it's these Javelin men that are the real threat to us here. Because they're just going to decimate us. I mean, really will be able to decimate us strongly. Let's go and get a Javelin toss on these cavalry as they come past. Well, at least, if nothing else, deactivate their infiltration ability. And actually get a fair amount of damage on them. So let's keep pulling back. These guys are in trouble now. I'm reluctant to abandon this guy. I don't really want to just abandon him. But, you know, it's getting hard to have much of a choice because I don't want to be really fighting these Falksmen head on. Are they Omnis? No, they're Boudica Falksmen. They've got Rebellion activated at the moment. Obviously spoiling for a fight. But I've got these War Dogs coming in. If we can isolate this guy enough, he's going to cluster like that. Then maybe it's not such a bad move. Okay, let's make our move. We'll push these guys a little bit further around. Take the fight. It's not going to be an easy one particularly. It's a shame these hand handlers don't push in more from the front. We're going to cluster in a little bit back down here. Let's go for our Potenza victory. Try and give us our, as much extra damage as we can. God, if these hand handlers come in, we might be able to break these guys before support comes up. Although I can see the Andratus swords coming in now. So it's maybe going to be a bit too late. Because we're taking quite a lot of damage. And here comes the enemy reinforcements. And I'm in a really bad spot. I think I'm going to break here. And make a run for it. These guys have got to clear out. Wow, that's a lot of damage in the fire. Just as the enemy, some of the enemy Falksmen were out as well, which is really unfortunate. So let's just try and get out of this with what we can left alive. This is where I really wish these guys had a charge, because even like him being able to charge into the rear of those Falksmen would be really quite helpful. Now we're in trouble because we are being pursued by these enemy units. Hopefully our Minius abilities are going to give me enough movement speed to be able to get away. I don't have a dash or anything to help me. I'm just going to have to keep pulling back. And we're going to get charged by enemy cavalry. Okay. Things are taking a bit of a turn for the worst. Let's at least try and get into some sort of forest. Looks like those hand handlers are dead. Really dead. It doesn't look like we've got a lot of support coming in any sort of format. So I think making for the forest is really going to be my only bet. Because these Gungnir charges are probably... I don't know if they're thinking of going for me or not, to be honest. Seem to have stopped in that bit of long grass. Some of our Equites have managed to catch some of their Javelin men, which is quite a nice move. But this is just a far too big a cluster for me to feasibly engage. You know, I'll get cut down. The Barbarians are not suitable for this sort of thing, particularly against head-to-head against Falksmen. And full 3 complements of full strength enemy Barbarian infantry as well. It's just going to be too much for me. And that's the problem I've got in this sort of situation. So, let's just keep moving. I don't know why momentum is not on that unit, so let's turn that on. I'm just going to try and keep skirting around the edge. I'm reluctant to get involved in anything at the moment. I've got these oh no, they're Barbarians as well. Too many Barbarian infantry in this game. We are not line infantry. Let's see if we can at least get a nice Javelin toss into some of these Falksmen. We'll at least do a good amount of damage to them. So yeah, let's keep pushing it this way. See what we can threaten. Let's get our infiltration back on as well to give us that little bit extra boost to the movement speed. Should take us over to 5s because it gives us another plus 8%. It does. 5.17 base speed. So, start to push down to see what we can do. Going for a bit of Scorched Earth there. We've got some Slingers and a unit of Pikemen, but they're enemy cavalry there, so we're going to be in trouble from that flank. I don't know where the rest of our units are. Kind of scattered around, stuck in various fights around the map by the looks of it. This bit of fire is actually kind of now quite in the way.
Our base is under attack. We must stop them.
They're rear flanking them. I'm going to cluster slightly here just to clear around this fire. I would rather rear javelin throw those Falksmen, because we should get some good damage in there, which we do. Push the unit round, and let's just do like this. Is when you know you need a charge for this sort of situation. Let's try and catch the back of these guys here as they're in amongst us. Oh, this is going to hurt. We're going to slow ourselves down now. Hopefully we're not going to rout, but I don't know if we will or not. And let's see what we can do damage-wise with our friends activated. I probably should have hung on a little bit longer to wait for our units to fully get back up, but we should get some damage on these Blood Riders there as they try and escape from our fight. There we go. Yeah, getting a good bit of damage there. Push that unit. Oh! Turn around at least to receive the charge. Yeah, I see. A charge like that is so hard for us to deal with. Being light infantry. And look, they can just run out because all our units are knocked down. And without a slam or anything like that for us to then be able to get in to sort of try and resist that, it's very hard for us to deal with anything. We are getting a bit of damage on the return now at least. But come on, guys. Try and kill what we've got amongst us. Yeah, not ideal really. That is one of the weaknesses of these type of infantry. So something you have to consider when you are premium unit. You know, light infantry don't have a very negligible charge impact compared to what you might expect compared to say like Roman infantry. Yeah, see, these guys are just going to be happy to charge us, I think.
Our base is under attack. We must stop them.
Let's go for a javelin throw on those guys. They're trying to catch up. Oh, they did. There we go. Another couple of thousand damage we got on them with the javelins. They're going to engage, you see, unless they get their pikes down, which amazingly they actually did. Now might be a reasonable opportunity to try and catch them. Let's you two engage there. Push you around. They've gone for iron discipline. They're running through me, I think, too much. Made a bit of a mistake there. Let's go for our frenzy, not that. We'll go for our extra weapon damage. So let's cut those guys down, which we do pretty effectively. These guys are going to push into me. I just want to turn my attention while I've got frenzy and my weapon damage activated. Can we get a bit of damage in on these guys? We can. We actually get pretty decent hits on these. You can see the sort of damage. You know, we're like 150 frontally, which is not bad, not to be sniffed at. So let's try and get some damage up on these guys. Obviously, we have now lost our frenzy, though, so it's going to get a little bit harder. But these guys, you know, we are fighting a fair fight. I'm clustered up here, which is an error because I'm now going to have to struggle against the rear flank of these enemy cavalry, which is going to be the problem. I'm going to try and stand a few units off, but I can't charge, you see, that's the problem. Just the light infantry just get mullered by the enemy cavalry in this sort of situation, which is what makes it so difficult. I don't know what else I can do. My units are now just so heavily depleted. We're going to get our frenzy back very shortly, which is maybe a positive. Let's go for our frenzy there. We'll go for another portents of whatever it is, inspired victory, to give us an extra bit of damage. But it looks like some of our units are now starting to rout because of the lack of morale. And yeah, we are pretty much done here. I think it was a fairly valiant last stand, but unfortunately not going to be enough to win this battle. Our last handful of units valiantly fighting on. Our frenzy doesn't really last long enough for this to be super effective. We're really careful on its timing. We did quite a lot of damage against those enemy cavalry there by the looks of it, but alas, not enough. And then more enemy cavalry. Both our games have just been absolutely just dominated by enemy cavalry, whereas our seem to have such a little amount of cavalry. There we go. That is the end of our game. So, what are the rest of our team doing? Looks like they are back trying to defend the base. I don't foresee a very positive future in this. Oh dear. Fighting against on some Murmler gladiators. They're a tier 6 light infantry for the Romans. Effectively a sort of form of barbarian infantry in terms of their classification. These guys now are rear flanked by these Andratus swords. Yeah, hopefully that was kind of interesting how before we got rear flanked by the enemy cavalry and once our frenzy had knocked off, we were fighting pretty fairly against those Andratus swordsmen. I didn't feel that I was at a significant disadvantage compared to those equivalent tier 7 units. So, you know, these guys are by no means significantly underpowered. I think they are worse in some sense. The fact that I can't play them with Vercingetorix because of the lack of speed is kind of a negative for me. But if you prefer playing your infantry with Arminius anyway because you're particularly a fan of Frenzy or you like the momentum, then, you know, I think these guys are going to work okay as a tier 7 barbarian infantry unit. They're certainly not a bad unit. And they're certainly pretty cool to look at, something a little bit different. Whether they are worth it compared to the Berserkers, which is the tier 8 equivalent, these guys here. So, you know, given the cost difference between the two, Obviously, it's slightly reduced actually because it's the Barbarian Infantry weekend at the moment. I'm not sure if it's worth the difference, but certainly something to bear in mind. So yes, that's kind of my conclusion. I think they are a solid tier 7 unit, but they certainly aren't amazing. If you're a big fan of Barbarian Infantry and you enjoy Arminius, then they're quite a nice combination to play at tier 7. But if you're just looking for sort of one unit to going to do your credit making and your free experience production, then they're probably not the best unit to be doing that sort of thing. So anyway, hopefully that gives you a bit of a reasonable overview of what these guys are like. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Be sure to let me know if they're eyebrows or a headband. And I shall see you all on the next video.